Britain once ruled a quarter of the world. Its navy controlled the seas. Its empire stretched across continents. But decades later, that same nation would vote to leave Europe. Tonight's story is not just about Brexit. It is about pride, decline, identity, and a question Britain could never fully answer. Was it European or something else entirely? So before we begin tonight's story, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments, was Brexit inevitable, or could history have gone differently? When World War II ended, Europe was shattered. Entire cities had become ruins, millions had died, and leaders feared another war could destroy civilization itself. Winston Churchill believed Europe needed unity. He dreamed of a United States of Europe, where cooperation would replace centuries of conflict. But Britain did not fully embrace this dream. Unlike France or Germany, Britain still saw itself as a global empire. It had powerful ties to America and a vast commonwealth spread across the world. To many British leaders, Europe seemed small compared to Britain's global ambitions. While Britain hesitated, continental Europe moved ahead. France and West Germany created the European Coal and Steel Community, the foundation of a new Europe. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Countries that traded together would be less likely to go to war. At the same time, Britain grew closer to the United States during the Cold War. Together, they tried to contain Soviet influence across Europe, but Britain feared something deeply uncomfortable. If Europe became too united, Britain might lose its special relationship with Washington. Then came the Suez Crisis in 1956. When Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal, Britain and France launched a military operation to regain control, but America refused to support them. Without American backing, the operation collapsed, and suddenly the truth became impossible to ignore. The British Empire was fading. The humiliation of Suez changed British politics forever. Leaders slowly realized that Britain could no longer survive through empire alone. Europe was growing stronger economically. Germany's industries were booming, and Britain was falling behind. So, Prime Minister Harold Macmillan decided Britain should join the European Economic Community. But there was a problem. Britain still wanted to protect its old Commonwealth trade system. It wanted the benefits of Europe without fully giving up the past. In 1963, French President Charles de Gaulle blocked Britain's application. He feared Britain would act as America's representative inside Europe. To de Gaulle, Britain was not truly committed to the European project. It still looked outward toward Washington and its fading empire. As the 1960s continued, Britain's problems grew worse. The Commonwealth weakened, the economy struggled, and political crises spread across the country. Eventually, even leaders who once opposed Europe began changing their minds. In 1973, Britain finally joined the European Economic Community. But even then, the arguments never ended. Some people believed Europe represented stability and prosperity. Others feared Britain was surrendering its sovereignty. Only 2 years later, Britain held a referendum on whether to remain inside Europe. The country was facing inflation, recession, terrorism, and fears of national collapse. And in that atmosphere of uncertainty, most voters chose stability. In 1975, Britain voted to remain. But Europe itself was changing. Under leaders like Margaret Thatcher, fierce battles erupted over money, trade, and political power. And when the European Union pushed toward deeper integration, a common currency, a central bank, and greater political unity, Euroscepticism exploded inside Britain. Many feared decisions were no longer being made in Westminster, but in Brussels. In the years that followed, Britain never fully resolved its relationship with Europe. Even Prime Minister Tony Blair, one of Britain's most pro-European leaders, refused to adopt the euro currency. The divide remained: Europe or sovereignty, integration or independence, future or tradition. And then, in 2016, after decades of tension, fear, and political conflict, Britain chose Brexit. But Brexit was never just one vote. It was the final chapter of a story that had been unfolding since the end of World War II, a story of empire, identity, fear, and Europe itself. And perhaps the question Britain struggled with for generations was never truly answered. Was it really European, or something entirely different? Good night, and I'll see you in the next story.